In the heart of New York City, beneath the glimmer of crystal chandeliers, the grand ballroom of the Saint Manhattan Regis Hotel stood as a symbol of wealth, power, and prestige. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, the wedding of Ryan Sinclair, the young billionaire CEO of Sinclair Enterprises, to Karen Langley, the daughter of one of the city's most influential families. The air was thick with excitement, the whispers of the elite echoing in every corner of the room. But behind the facade of perfection, a storm was quietly brewing. One that would change the lives of everyone involved forever. Ryan Sinclair, at just 35 years old, had everything anyone could dream of: money, power, influence. He was the embodiment of success, a man who had built his empire from the ground up. Yet, as he stood at the altar, the weight of his own ambition seemed to bear down on him. A strange unease gnawed at him, an unexplainable feeling that something was wrong. His eyes scanned the room, the faces of the guests blurred in the periphery of his mind. They were all waiting for the grand moment, the entrance of his bride, Karen Langley. Karen Langley, with her perfect beauty and her flawless upbringing, seemed like the perfect match. They had been together for 2 years, their relationship a picture of societal perfection. On paper, they were everything that society wanted in a power couple. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that there was something missing. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but something about the moment felt off. "Are you okay?" Ryan, Jason Carter, his best man and lifelong friend, asked, his voice filled with concern. Ryan nodded absently, though the uneasy feeling in his stomach wouldn't go away. He stood tall, his tuxedo fitted perfectly. A man on the outside who seemed in control of everything. But inside, he was a man torn between duty and desire, between the life he had built and the life he truly longed for. As the string quartet began to play, signaling the start of the wedding march, the guests rose to their feet, eyes fixed on the grand double doors. The tension in the air was palpable as everyone waited for the bride to make her entrance. Ryan, still standing at the altar, felt his pulse quicken. This was supposed to be the moment of his life, the crowning achievement of his personal success. But as the doors swung open, the person who walked through them was not the woman he had imagined. Instead of Karen in her wedding gown, it was her father, Henry Langley, who stepped into the room, his face pale and filled with an expression that made Ryan's heart sink. Something was terribly wrong. His chest tightened, and his mind raced with questions. What could it be? Why was Karen not here? Henry Langley's eyes were filled with an almost unbearable sorrow as he walked toward Ryan. He stopped before him, his voice low and strained. "Karen wants to see you." Now, the words hung in the air, heavy with foreboding. Ryan's heart raced. His mind flooded with confusion. What had happened? Why was Karen not here? What was going on? Without a word, Ryan followed Henry down the hall, his every step feeling heavier than the last. As they reached the bridal suite, Henry opened the door, revealing Karen standing by the window, her back to him. Her flawless makeup, so meticulously applied, was now streaked with tears. Ryan's stomach twisted with a sense of dread. "Karen," he called softly, stepping into the room. She turned to face him, her eyes red from crying. "Arnan!" And Ryan's heart sank as he saw the anguish written on her face. "I can't do this." "Ryan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The words hit him like a physical blow. He couldn't understand. "What do you mean? What's happening?" His voice trembled with a mixture of confusion and fear. Karen wiped at her tears and took a shaky breath. She twisted the 5-carat engagement ring on her finger, her fingers trembling as she spoke the words that would shatter Ryan's world. "I can't marry you." "Ryan, it's not right." Ryan blinked, in disbelief, his mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what she was saying. What? Why? We're about to get married. There are hundreds of people out there waiting. His voice cracked. He couldn't finish the sentence. It felt as if the ground beneath him was giving way. Karen's gaze shifted down to her ring, her fingers brushing the diamond that symbolized their love. A love that now felt like a lie. I know, Ryan, she said softly, but I can't pretend anymore. This isn't the life I want. I thought I could be happy with you, but I can't keep living a lie. Her voice was trembling, and she took a deep, shaky breath. I can't do this to you, and I can't do it to myself. Ryan's heart raced, panic rising within him. Is there someone else? He asked, his voice breaking. Karen didn't respond immediately. Her silence, the answer he feared the most. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Karen finally removed the engagement ring from her finger and placed it on the dressing table, the cold, metallic clink of the ring, a stark contrast to the silence that surrounded them. I'm truly sorry, Ryan, she whispered. You deserve someone who loves you completely. And just like that, Karen Longley, the woman who was supposed to be his wife, walked out of his life, leaving him standing in the bridal suite with a broken heart, a shattered future, and a room full of guests waiting for a wedding that would never happen. Ryan Sinclair stood there, frozen, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on him like an unrelenting force. His heart pounded in his chest, his breaths shallow, as he tried to make sense of the chaos that had just erupted in his life. Karen had left him, right here, at the altar, on the day they were supposed to commit their lives to each other. The door to the bridal suite slammed behind her, leaving Ryan alone in the room. His mind was spinning, unable to process the full extent of what had just occurred. The woman he thought he would spend the rest of his life with had walked away, leaving him standing amidst the ruins of a dream he had built. A dream that had seemed so perfect just hours before. In the ballroom, the guests murmured in shock, their whispers growing louder as they tried to make sense of what was happening. Ryan could hear their voices, but they felt distant, as though he were hearing them through a thick fog. The noise of the world around him felt muffled, overshadowed by the deafening silence in his heart. He stumbled down the hallway, his mind a blur, his hands trembling as he tried to steady himself. He had to get away. He needed space. He needed air. He needed to escape this nightmare. But as he walked past the ballroom, he caught sight of a familiar face. A woman who had been moving behind the scenes all evening, unnoticed by the guests, focused solely on making sure the event went smoothly. Tegan Carter, the event planner, had seen it all. She had worked in this industry for 5 years, organizing countless extravagant weddings. But she had never seen anything like this. She had never seen a bride walk out on her wedding day, leaving the groom to face the humiliation alone. As she moved between tables, directing the staff and making sure everything was in order, she noticed a strange energy in the air. Something was off. She could feel it. The tension in the room, the way the guests were whispering behind their hands, the confusion that seemed to hang in the atmosphere like a thick fog. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, Tegan turned toward the side room near the ballroom. She heard a heavy sigh, a sound so full of pain and regret that it made her heart ache. Hesitating for only a moment, she pushed open the door. Inside, Ryan Sinclair sat slumped in a chair, his bow tie undone, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked nothing like the powerful, composed businessman the world knew him to be. He looked broken, defeated. For the first time, the mask he had worn for so long was gone, revealing the man beneath it. Vulnerable, lost, and completely undone. Tegan knew she should leave him alone. She should respect his privacy. But something in the way he looked at her, something raw, something desperate, stopped her. She walked toward him, her heart heavy with compassion. Mr. Sinclair, she said softly, her voice hesitant. Would you like me to bring you anything? Ryan looked up, his eyes glazed with emotion. He didn't recognize her at first, but then his gaze sharpened, focusing on her. For a moment, he just stared at her, as if trying to understand who she was. Unless you can turn back time, he said bitterly. There's nothing anyone can do for me today. His voice cracked with the weight of his despair. Tegan didn't know what to say. She could see the pain in his eyes, the anguish that had been hidden behind the carefully constructed facade of wealth and power. He was a man who had everything, but in this moment, it felt like he had lost everything too. I'm sorry about what happened, she said quietly, not sure if words could ever be enough to heal the wounds he was carrying. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. Are you? He asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm sure plenty of people are enjoying watching Ryan Sinclair fall. No one enjoys your pain, Tegan said softly, her tone gentle. And you don't have to pretend to be strong. Not right now. For a moment, Ryan's defenses cracked. He stared at her, and for the first time in hours, he didn't feel completely alone. Days passed since that disastrous night, but Ryan couldn't shake the memory of Karen's words, the look in her eyes as she left him behind. He had once believed that everything in his life had a purpose, that each move he made had led him to this point, this perfect marriage with Karen Langley. But now, standing in the wreckage of his perfect world, he couldn't help but wonder how it had all gone so wrong. It was then, almost by instinct, that he found Tegan Carter's business card, the woman who had offered him a quiet kindness when the world had turned its back on him. He didn't know why he felt compelled to call her. Maybe it was the simple act of her sitting with him, saying nothing, but offering something so rare, understanding. Or maybe it was the way she seemed unaffected by his wealth, his fame, his reputation. Tegan had been just a stranger, yet in that moment, she had been the one to offer him comfort. Ryan dialed her number, his hand trembling slightly as he pressed the phone to his ear. The call rang twice before she picked up. Hello. Tegan's voice was warm, with a slight lilt, as though she had expected this call, even though she hadn't known it was coming. Tegan, Ryan said softly, his voice filled with gratitude, though it came out a little hesitant. I just wanted to say thank you for staying with me that night. I didn't realize how much I needed someone to just be there. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a brief silence that spoke volumes. Then Tegan spoke, her voice light and unbothered, as though the chaos of the night before had been nothing more than a distant memory. You don't have to thank me, Ryan. I just did what anyone would do. No, he corrected her, his voice firming. You did more than that. You were there when no one else was. He meant it. In a world full of people who wanted something from him, something real, something human, felt like a rare gift. He didn't know why, but in that moment, Tegan Carter, the event planner, had given him something more valuable than all the money in his bank account. She had given him solace. They talked for a few more minutes, the conversation flowing easily between them, an unexpected connection building between two people from completely different worlds. It started innocently enough, an exchange of small details, a quick chat about her life, his life, and everything in between. It was a brief call, but for Ryan, it felt like a breath of fresh air after being suffocated by expectations and judgment. By the end of their conversation, Ryan found himself inviting her out for coffee, something casual, a way to thank her for her kindness. Tegan agreed, and with that, their relationship began to shift from the realm of mere acquaintance to something more. It wasn't long before they were meeting regularly. First, it was coffee dates. Then, long walks in Central Park, where Ian learned about Tegan's life. She shared stories about her small Brooklyn apartment, her dreams of becoming a teacher, her passion for helping children find their voice through education. Each time they spoke, Ryan felt a little more at peace, a little more like himself. Tegan, in turn, discovered a side of Ryan she had never imagined. Beneath the wealth and the power, there was a man who had always been too busy to truly live. Too busy to connect with people on a human level. She found that the more she got to know him, the more she saw someone who longed for something deeper than money and status. She was different from the women he was used to. She wasn't dazzled by his wealth or success. She simply saw him for who he truly was. And that was something Ryan had never experienced before. I always thought my life was complete, Ryan told her one evening as they sat together on a park bench, the crisp autumn air swirling around them. I thought if I had the perfect wife, the perfect career, everything would be, well, perfect. But I never realized how empty it all was until now. Tegan smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. You can't find the fulfillment in things, Ryan, not really. It's about the people you connect with, the lives you touch, and you have a chance to do something meaningful, to help people see the world differently. Ryan looked at her, a mixture of awe and admiration in his eyes. You make me see things differently. I never thought about it like that before. The conversations between them deepened over time, and soon, something neither of them expected began to unfold. A deep, genuine connection, born not from convenience or necessity, but from something far rarer, mutual understanding and respect. Ryan found himself drawn to Tegan, not for her simplicity or her modest life, but for her kindness, her depth, and her ability to see him for who he truly was. Just another person, lost in the world, trying to figure things out. But as their connection grew stronger, the world around them began to notice what had started as an innocent friendship, something that was never meant to be public, quickly became the subject of gossip and speculation. The tabloids, the paparazzi, the media, they all wanted a piece of Ryan Sinclair's life, and Tegan Carter had suddenly become a target. The first article hit within days, a gossip piece that ran on the front page of one of New York's most prominent tabloids, from billionaire fiancé to event planner girlfriend, Ryan Sinclair's new love. The headline alone was enough to send the public into a frenzy. Below it was a photograph of Ryan and Tegan sharing a quiet moment at a local coffee shop, their hands almost touching. It was harmless. But the world didn't see it that way. The comments online were vicious. So, this is his rebound. A downgrade from his billionaire fiancé to a simple event planner. One comment read, "She's clearly just after his money. It won't last." Another one sneered. The judgment was immediate and harsh. Tegan, who had spent her life avoiding attention and criticism, suddenly found herself at the center of a media storm she hadn't asked for. And for Ryan, it was a cruel reminder of how different his world was from Tegan's. A world where everything had a price. And love seemed to be the one thing that couldn't be bought. Tegan, for the first time, found herself questioning everything. She had never cared about the opinions of strangers. But now, when every aspect of her life was being scrutinized, it felt like the walls were closing in on her. Her co-workers, her classmates, even the people she had grown up with, all turned on her. Whispers followed her wherever she went, and the judgment weighed heavily on her shoulders. She sat alone one evening in her small apartment, scrolling through the online comments about her relationship with Ryan. Her heart sank with each passing word, each new insult. But the worst part wasn't the anonymous internet trolls. It was the way people she had once trusted started to look at her differently. "I never signed up for this," she whispered to herself, the weight of the judgment almost too much to bear. Ryan, too, felt the pressure mounting. He had never been someone who cared about what people thought. But seeing Tegan go through this Seeing the way the world had turned against them, against her, tore him apart. The woman he loved was being painted as a gold digger, a woman who had only been with him for his wealth. And he couldn't stand it. One evening, after receiving another barrage of hateful messages, Ryan stormed into Tegan's apartment, his face set with determination. "I won't let them do this to you," he declared, his voice full of resolve. "I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. I'm going to set the record straight." Tegan stood frozen, her mind racing. "Ryan, please, you don't have to do this. If you do, they'll never leave you alone." But Ryan's gaze was unwavering. "I don't care anymore. I'm not going to let anyone take away the one thing in my life that's real. You're not a replacement for anyone. Tegan, you're you." Tegan could feel her heart swelling in her chest. His words, his commitment to her, made her believe that maybe, just maybe, love was enough to face the world. The next day, Ryan stood before the media, his posture firm, his expression resolute. "The recent rumors are completely false," he said. "Tegan Carter is not a rebound. She's not a replacement. She's an incredible woman, and I am proud to have her in my life." The media buzzed with questions. Reporters fired off accusations. But Ryan stood tall, unshaken. He was no longer the man hiding behind his wealth and power. He was standing up for love, for the woman he had come to care for, in a way he never thought possible. And for the first time, Tegan didn't feel alone. The press conference marked a turning point in their story, but it was only the beginning of a much larger battle. The media frenzy had not died down, but the shift in public perception was palpable, with Ryan standing strong beside Tegan, defending her against the onslaught of rumors and accusations. There was a sense of hope in the air. But the war wasn't over. In fact, the hardest part was yet to come. The days that followed were filled with tension. As the world seemed to scrutinize every step Ryan and Tegan took together, the media kept its relentless gaze on them, always looking for cracks in their relationship, waiting for the moment when they would falter. But Ryan, for the first time in his life, didn't care about what anyone thought. He was determined to protect Tegan, to prove that their love was real, that it was worth fighting for. And for her part, Tegan found herself standing by him, even though the world around them seemed to be closing in. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of Tegan's small Brooklyn apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, Tegan turned to Ryan with a mixture of uncertainty and longing in her eyes. "Ryan, even if everything seems fine now, your world still feels so far from mine," she said softly. "I don't want to live a life where I always have to fight to prove that I belong in your world. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly defending us or defending me." Ryan's heart sank as he heard her words. He knew the pressure she was under, the weight of judgment, the way everyone around her seemed to be turning their backs on her. But he couldn't let her go. He loved her too much. And he knew that the only way forward was together, not apart. He took a deep breath, as though bracing himself for the most important thing he had ever said. "Tegan, you don't have to prove anything. Not to me, not to anyone. You don't have to change to fit into my world because, honestly, I don't want that world if you're not in it." Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she was silent, processing the depth of his words. Ryan's eyes never left hers, his expression open and vulnerable, showing his true feelings. "I've been so scared of losing you, Tegan," he admitted, his voice full of raw emotion. "But I've realized now that I can't live without you. I don't want a life that doesn't have you in it. You've made me see what really matters. It's not wealth or power or status. It's love. And I'm ready to fight for that." Tegan's eyes filled with tears, the depth of his words washing over her like a wave. She had never imagined that someone like Ryan, someone who had everything, could love her in such a pure, unconditional way. But here he was, offering her the world, not with riches or fame, but with his heart. Ryan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, as if to assure her that he meant every word. I'm not asking you to change, Tegan. I'm asking you to stay with me, just as you are, and let me love you for the rest of my life. A single tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled softly, the weight of her fears slowly lifting. Ryan, I don't know if I can ever stop worrying about what people think, but I know one thing for sure. I don't want to live without you either. I've never felt more alive than when I'm with you. Ryan's heart swelled with happiness. It was everything he had hoped for and more. He didn't care about the opinions of the world anymore. He cared about her, and that was enough. The days turned into weeks, and their love only grew stronger. They continued to face the pressures of their different worlds, but they no longer let it drive a wedge between them. They found solace in each other, drawing strength from the bond they shared. For Ryan, Tegan was the missing piece of his life, the person who made him realize that happiness wasn't about success or wealth. It was about love. And for Tegan, Ryan was the man who showed her that even in the midst of chaos, love could be a steady anchor, a place of refuge. Despite the challenges, the whispers, and the judgment, Ryan and Tegan built a life together. They shared the simple moments that meant more than anything to them. Like walking hand in hand through the city streets, laughing over coffee, or sitting together in the quiet of the evening, content in the knowledge that they had found something real, something that wasn't dependent on status, money, or the opinions of others. But their journey wasn't without its final test. One day, Karen Langley, the woman who had once been Ryan's fiancé, showed up at Tegan's apartment. The knock on the door was unexpected, and when Tegan opened it, she found Karen standing there, poised and elegant, holding something in her hand, without waiting for an invitation. Karen stepped into the apartment. Tegan crossed her arms, not sure what to expect, but already dreading the confrontation. I need to talk to you, Karen said, her voice cool and distant. Tegan raised an eyebrow. I don't think we have anything to say to each other. Karen looked around the modest apartment, her eyes scanning the small space as if judging it. I'm offering you an opportunity, Tegan, a chance to walk away from Ryan before this gets ugly. Tegan felt her pulse quicken, confusion and anger bubbling up inside her. What is this? She asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Karen placed a check on the table. $3 million. The sum written on it clear and cold. This is your chance to walk away. Tegan, take the money. Leave Ryan. He's better off with someone like me. Someone who belongs in his world. Tegan stared at the check, her fists clenched in fury. You really think I'm with him for his money? Karen's lips curled into a smile, one that dripped with superiority. Women like you always are. You may think you're different, but sooner or later, Ryan will realize you don't belong in his world. Tegan's eyes burned with defiance. She reached out, grabbed the check, and tore it into pieces right in front of Karen's eyes. Keep your money, she said, her voice calm but firm. I don't want it. Karen's face darkened, but she simply shrugged, her tone cold and dismissive. Don't say I didn't warn you. And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving Tegan standing there, holding the shredded remnants of the offer, knowing that she had made the right choice. The next day, the media was at it again, with Karen giving a public interview, painting Tegan as a cheap replacement for the perfect fiancé. She claimed Ryan had been too obsessed with work, that he was distant, and that she had tried everything to make it work. But Ryan true to his word, didn't let the lies stand. He stormed into Tegan's apartment. Furious but determined, "I'm setting the record straight," he said, his eyes blazing with intensity. "I'm going to defend you, no matter what." Tegan hesitated, worry creeping into her heart. "Ryan, you don't have to do this. If you do, it'll only make things worse." But Ryan wasn't backing down. "I'm not letting anyone control this narrative. Not Karen, not anyone. I'm going to fight for you, Tegan, because you're worth it." The next day, Ryan stood before the press once again, his voice strong and unwavering. "Tegan Carter is not a replacement. She's an incredible woman, and I'm proud to have her in my life." As the media bombarded him with questions, he faced the storm head-on. He refused to let anyone tear them apart. And slowly, things began to change. The public opinion shifted. People started seeing Ryan and Tegan for who they really were. Not a billionaire and a gold digger, but two people who had found something real, something worth fighting for. As the rumors faded, Ryan and Tegan's love only grew stronger. Tegan received messages of support, even from some of her co-workers who had once doubted her. The world was starting to see the truth. And as they stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, Ryan whispered the words that sealed their future. "For years, I'd fight the whole world." And in that moment, Tegan knew that nothing would ever come between them. They had fought for their love, and they had won. Their story wasn't about wealth, power, or status. It was about a love that endured, a love worth fighting for, a love that could never be torn apart.